Basically, if I looked more from the core topic, of today's discussion is there. Let me just brief a little bit about a one-liner. I am Professor Dr. Roshankumar Palewar, and being into the global pharmaceutical strategy, policy, healthcare system leader, and a group CEO at DocRoSh Global Solutions. So today my talk is absolutely, touch upon the core aspect, and I'm going to highlight more on the from the potency assessment to containment by design, and most importantly, the building an integrated safety architecture for HPAPI manufacturing, high potency active pharmaceutical ingredients. And when having said that, the integration is the key in today's competitive world to become a successful entrepreneur, to become a successful service provider, especially coming from the API as a sector altogether, right? So my central proposition is simple, in HPAPI manufacturing, the safety cannot be added after the process has been designed. It must be engineered into the entire life cycle, from understanding the molecule to verifying the containment during the routine operation, and that has to be a crux in the entire, the let's get into the core of this thesis altogether. My thesis is very simple. Like when we talk about the HPAPI, safety must be treated as an integrated architecture, not as an isolated control. Most of the time, what we see as a control measure, been implemented rather than as an integrated part of the entire operations, as an entire segment. So it has to be a integrated architecture when it comes to the HPAPI complexities, right? So that architecture has basically 5 connected elements. And when I say the connected elements, it talks about the entire story of the HPAPI, right? The very first is a science, right? And science has the potency, toxicology, and exposure limits. And when it comes to the engineering as a second, element, it has the closed processing, the isolators, transfer systems, havoc, and the pressure control, right? The third is the quality, right? The quality is having the cleaning and contamination control as the key aspect, right? And fourth is the verification, where it actually means the industrial hygiene monitoring, performance assessment, and trending. Now, the most important, the fifth element comes, which is called culture. Now, culture plays a critical role in the entire integrity and the quality outcome and the safety of the entire, operations altogether when we deliver the product molecule in the market, right? So, culture talks about the competence, it talks about the reporting, it's all about the maintenance, discipline, and leadership accountability. So the objective is dual protection, right? And the dual protection means protecting the people from occupational exposure while also protecting the patient and products from the cross contamination. So if either side is weak, the system is incomplete, right? So therefore, there has to be appropriate balance between both the sides to ensure everything is aligned as per the requirement, right? Now let's get into how we could further enhance the areas. How could we further, ensure? Basically, we need to start with the potency and not the PPE. Whereas we saw, like most of the cases, PP has been taken as a first prima facie, action, whereas the potency is the crucial factor, right? The first rule is start with the potency, not with the PP. So before selecting an isolator or let's say respirator or room classifications or even a cleaning method, the organization must understand the compound on which the entire process is to be built up. So what is the toxicological profile? What is the route of exposure? Is the material dusty, micronized, or weight, or granulated, right? So what quantities are going to be handled, right? Where are the open transfers, right? Which operations create the highest exposure potential? So all these basics that we need to understand at the very first step of the potency itself, right? So where scientifically established occupational exposure limit, or let's say OEL, is available. It provides the airborne exposure target for the operator protections, right? And where a formal OEL is not available, in that particular case, obviously the OEB, occupational exposure band, can support the structure containment decisions, right? So it's a case on case basis. But of course, having said that, OEL and the OEBs are not merely labels, they must be translated into the process requirement. They should be and must be a part of the process rather than just a stage of clearances, right? A very low exposure limit, combined with the dusty material, obviously at a large batch and repeated open transfers requires a different control strategy from the same potency category handled through a closed or the wet processes. So basically, if you look into it, the process will be differ as per the the molecule could be same, but the process might be different as per the different parameters of the molecule itself, right? So we must also distinguish the operator exposure lens from the patient and the product lens point of view, right? So both the lenses, patient as well as the product, has to be in picture of the entire operations. So the OEL or the OEB thinking supports the occupational safety. So health-based exposure limits, let's say including PDE based thinking, or support cross-contamination risk management in share or multi-product facilities. That has to be a balanced way. So basically, if you look into it, cross-classification at the beginning leads to absolutely a wrong containment throughout the life cycle. So these are the areas where we need to keep an extra eye, and because what happens, the safety therefore begins before the facility layout, right? So it begins with the science of the compound. So that is most important role play has to be taken care at the very beginning step itself, right? Now let's get into the further angle and perspective of how the containment by design plays a critical role, right? Once the hazard is understood, we know these are the hazards, right? So the next principle comes is the containment by design. That's the most appropriate way to look into the, all the angles, right? The hierarchy must begin by eliminating, or let's say minimizing open handling, right? Can the process reduce the powder exposure? Can we use a wet transfer, or let's say can charging or sampling or discharge, or let's say cleaning be enclosed? So these are the different lens questions has to be dig down, so to get the better clarity and visibility. And then after, the next layer comes into the picture. The next layer is all about the engineering containment. So where isolators, close transfer systems, and even the split butterfly walls, the containing charging, the local exhaust, and fit for purpose equipment interfaces comes into the picture, right? So facility control then reinforce the equipment strategy through the segregation, control access, as well as the pressure cascades and the havoc design and defined waste routes altogether. And when it comes to the administrative control, for example, in the facility or in the manufacturing operations, there are the SOPs are there. There are the certain permits are there. There are line clearances at every single stages, right? There is a training and the supervision remain essential. That they play a critical role. But having said that, they should support the engineering controls, not compensate for the big design, right? It has to be a part of the engineering control systems altogether. Now, the PPE is the final protective layer. Basically, this has been considered as the, or let's say, this has been taken as a very first step, which should not be the case. So PPE is basically the final protective layer, So it is important, definitely, but it should never become the primary containment philosophy. The moment we have the PPE, we are safe. That should not be the philosophy or the thinking altogether. So a useful test is this, like, if safe operation depends mainly on the perfect human behavior every time, right? So similarly, the design is already fragile. So that test, if you pass through, then obviously risk has been minimized. So risk should be reduced at source first, where are the beginning happens. Secondly, the human behavior should be supported by design and not just burdened by design failure, right? So most of the time we always talk about the design failures, but it is supposed to be a inherent human behavior, which is plays a critical role in ensuring the safety overall, right? Now, I would like to take you through the next phase where facility design is a control measure, where how things can be controlled and what are the major areas. So facility design itself is a control measures. Even like excellent equipment level containment can fail if if the facility flow is poorly designed. So again, if you look into it, the control at the facility level plays a critical role here. So potent compounds must remain within the designed areas that requires the first of all the segregation, then control movement of the people and materials in that designated area, defined degowning routes, and the safe handling waste, right? These are the measure has to be in place. The havoc strategy must support the directional flow, airflow, and appropriate pressure differentials, dust controls, filtration mechanisms, the exhaust management, and the obviously the recovery following an upset altogether, right? So we must also examine the operational interfaces. How will maintenance personnel enter the area? How will samples be removed? How will filters be changed? How will an operator respond to a spill or equipment failure? And how will containment components move to washing or the disposal? So these are the operational interfaces we need to check, we need to challenge, and we need to overcome. So these non-routine activities often create the greatest exposure risk because they sit outside the idealized normal processes, right? And therefore the facility must be designed not only for production purpose but also for cleaning, maintenance, intervention, and emergency responses. So if the facility is equipped in all this perspective, then we can say the facility is under control, and therefore the containment that is excellent at equipment level uh, can still fail at facility flow level. And therefore, the control measures we take at the facility plays very vital role in the HPAPI manufacturing processes. Now, we talk about that. Now let's get into the more of cleaning, decontamination, and the changeover processes and how this impacts the overall, the safety, right? So in HPAPI plants, and cleaning is a safety control, not the housekeeping activity. Generally, it's been treated as okay. Let's do mopping, let's do the cleaning, and everything is fine. No, that's not the case. So because the next critical pillar is cleaning and decontamination and changeovers basically because the carryover from the first compound or the first batch which has been manufactured can contaminate the next subsequent batches. So there are the changeover has to be happen systematically. So in HPAPI plant, because it's a very high potent APIs that we are talking about, cleaning is not a housekeeping activity, and therefore is a safety control, the quality control, and the patient protection control. We need to see from that lens, and we must ask the basic questions every time. Like for example, first, how are the operators protected during the dismantling, washing, the manual interventions, and the waste handling? We need to think on that line as well. Secondly, how we scientifically, how are scientifically justifies residues limits established and which must be verified to prevent the cross contamination as I talk about the changeover activity. Third thing that we need to ask is what evidence demonstrates that equipment and room are ready for the next operation. So obviously there is a QA who looks after the inspections of the particular operations, And once the QC testing has been carried out with the clearance of the cleaning and validation, then next batches can be operated in the same facility or same operations. So changeovers should be examined practically, because most of the challenges or most of the contamination happens at this particular phase. So having said that, we also need to dig down further and ask, like, what residue matters most. Where can material hide? Where are the areas which is exposed during the cleaning? How is effectiveness is verified, and what data prove the readiness? So if this fundamental question being asked or at each phases, then definitely we have the clarity of safety, we have the clarity of control, we have the clarity of contaminations, right? And with that particular note, cleaning validation should not become a one-time documentation exercise, as part of the protocol, SOPs, guidelines. Obviously, cleaning validation plays a critical role, but that should not remain as a documented exercise on the paper. It must be maintained through the entire life cycle review and deviation learning, equipment changes, and the periodic verification. So if that has been practiced thoroughly, then we definitely ensure the safety, or let's say the contamination can be controlled at that phases itself, right? So poor cleaning in HPAPI operation is not merely a procedural weakness, it is actually a strategic control failure. So QA has to play a critical role, especially when it comes to the cleanliness and the decontamination and changeover activities, right? Now, when we talk about that, there is another step we need to thoroughly check, and that is all about the we need to verify, we need to monitor, and we need to trend, right? So what exactly this means? The containment must then be verified, monitored
Sorry to
systematically.
interrupt, sir. Dr. Roshan.
Yeah.
Can you just
Yes,
complete
please.
in another 2-3 minutes?
Okay, done. Noted. So
Thank
in
you,
this
sir.
particular slide, the verify, monitor, and trend, what is important, the safety must be measured, not merely declared, right? And which involves the personal monitoring, area monitoring, containment performances, pressure havoc trends demonstrations, and near misses, alarms, abnormal interventions, and deviations are equally important. And as an organization should create the evidence loop for the measure, investigate, improve, and the re-verify. If that cycle is being implemented systematically as a routine practice, then containment can be controlled, safety can be ensured in the throughout the process, right? Now, in the today's modern world, as the digitalization plays a advancement and taking the center stage, digital controls are actually the a part of the safety integrity. And when you talk about the integrity, obviously the data is playing a critical role in that. So data integrity, alarm discipline, and event trending systems control over time that has to be ensured. Real-time visibility is something that has to be monitored. Validated records, all the documentation that has been taken place, including all the unit operations, including audit trails, the as well as the electronic batch records, evidences, and maintenance has to be well validated and systematically being noted down. And obviously, there are the systems which is called the learnable systems, near miss capture, which has to be uh, monitor or keep a watch on that. Deviation trends, we need to monitor like how the deviation is happening, what is the trend, and can we control that? If we know the trend, definitely the root cause analysis can be done and we come out from that particular issues. Preventive actions and the management review, these are the routine approaches that we need to implement in a way to get the systematically ensured safety and control into the facilities. So next is a safety culture converts control into the program. Now this is important, and I will just touch upon on a very eagle point of view how exactly this plays a critical role, safety culture, because even the best isolator can fail in a weak operating culture, and therefore the safety culture becomes visible through the everyday behavior, the behavior of the personnel who are walking into there, the operators, the technicians, the researchers, and everyone, right? So while the operators report a near miss, whether the supervisors stop an unsafe activity, that we need to see whether the maintenance is completed before failure or not, whether the deviations are investigated systematically, honestly, transparently, and whether the requalification is treated as essential rather than the optional. Right? So safety culture becomes the visible when deviations, near misses, and maintenance gaps are reported early and not hidden late. So that's the key aspect. It has to be transparently been reported, and the appropriate mitigation has to be done. So that culture has to be built on everything, not only just a SOP or protocol or documentation, but as a human nature, we need to ensure the culture is being established in the entire operations throughout the time. So HPAPI safety must be obviously engineered scientifically, governed operationally, and verified continuously and sustained culturally. If we maintain the balance of this as the end-to-end process, then we can definitely say that it's the core aspect where HPAPS safety must be engineered systematically, governed operationally, verified continuously, and sustained culturally to get absolutely safe and more integrated quality into the entire processes. So having said that, I think HPAPI manufacturing, it's obviously a key area, and the responsibility is not only lies on the one single department, but across the value chain of the operations, and from the toxicology to engineering to EHS to production, even to quality maintenance, the entire digital systems being operated in this, facilities, and most importantly, the leadership who is sitting on the top to function as one risk-governed architecture. So it's a shared responsibility end to end, and if that has been governed systematically, the safety of HPAPI, can be ensured. The safety of all the personnel, not only the personnel, but the product safety and the patient safety is being ensured systematically. So that is all about the today's session. I'm sure in the coming panel discussion, we'll have many more questions. We're going to address that. Thank you very much for the active and patient listenings. And definitely, I look forward to the subsequent panel discussions and any questions coming during that time. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure discussing with everyone. Thank you.